Alright, so I think this was a result that we all expected. I think that pretty much like the vast majority of people were picking Terence Crawford to win this fight, but I don't think they were picking Terence Crawford to win it as early as he did. Alright, obviously we know the result now. Terence Crawford stops Kell Brook in the 4th round, early in the 4th round, and in terms of Crawford, you would say this is his best win at welterweight. You would say that this is probably the toughest opponent he's faced, although it didn't technically look like that, in terms of, it was a big welterweight in Kell Brook, it was a hard-hitting welterweight in Kell Brook, and, in terms of some of the other guys he's fought, like Amir Khan, Horn and all that, Kell Brook was a better than all them, right? But Terence Crawford didn't make it look that way. Terence Crawford, he got rid of Kell Brook quicker than he got rid of Amir Khan. I think this is the quickest he's got an opponent out of there at welterweight. And Kell Brook, at one stage, great welterweight. Seriously, Kell Brook, when he was in his peak in like 2014, 2015, Kell Brook was a great welterweight. He would have given all the top guys problems. Not saying he would have beaten them all, but he would have beaten a good few of them. So Kell Brook at that stage was, he was something, he was the special K, right? But now, I think this is the end of the road for Kell Brook. Let's talk about this fight, right? The first 3 rounds went as I expected. If I did a prediction video, but to be fair, I didn't think it was that great, so I didn't upload it. But I said in it that Kell Brook will come out, he'll be popping the jab, he'll be trying to keep it at long range. Kell Brook hasn't got an inside game to speak of. Crawford's quite good in the inside. He's going to want to keep it a distance, right? And that's exactly what he did. 2 of the judges had Kell Brook ahead in this fight by 1 round, and the other judge had Crawford ahead by 1 round. To be fair, I thought Kell Brook took the first 2 rounds. The 3rd round was kind of a bit of a, you could give it either way. I would have just probably given it to Crawford. But Kell Brook came out, he's using his jab. He looked a lot bigger. You just see how just his shoulders, his back, every part of him was a lot bigger than Crawford. Crawford had the longer arms. Right? You could see that straight away, that Kell Brook's arms were shorter. But Kell Brook was still able to tag Terence Crawford with jabs. He was fighting well at long range. Whenever Crawford would get close, though, that's when you started thinking, ooh, is Kell Brook going to be okay? Because sometimes Kell Brook would step in. Or sometimes Kell Brook would stay in the pocket too long. And Crawford, although the shots weren't landing, he was dangerous. You could see some fast combinations on the inside that were going in, some uppercuts going in there. And you just thought, oh, Kell Brook's going to want to be careful. He's not going to want to stay at close range too long. So when he gets his work done on the outside, he's going to want to move. He did tag Terence Crawford with some jabs early on, and there was a little bit of swelling under Crawford's right eye. I think they said, the ESPN commentary team said that on average at welterweight, opponents land 21% of their shots, right? Whether it be jabs, etc., etc. Brook was landing 36%, so he was landing a lot more on Crawford than other opponents had in the past. And you could definitely see he was having success early on. And you could see that Kell Brook, his timing wasn't that bad, I didn't think, early on in this fight. He looked fine. But we get into well, actually, I'll tell you one thing. What Crawford did was, Crawford came out in the orthodox stance, and he realised early on, okay, this guy he's good at long range. His jab is good. I need to take that jab away. Apologies, people. Just something caught in my throat there. He's like, I need to take that jab away. So what did he do? He switched it up to southpaw. And he didn't really do anything when he was in the southpaw stance. He threw a few shots here and there, but crucially, it took Kell Brook's jab away. However, I did notice Terence Crawford, I think it was in the 3rd round, walk onto a right hand. Didn't look like the most devastating right hand Kell Brook would have thrown, but it certainly caught Terence Crawford's attention. He took it fine. Didn't seem to take it any issues. We go into the 4th round, and this is what I said. There was both guys were at long range, using their jabs, probing. Kell Brook stepped in with a shot. He stepped in with a jab that missed, and Crawford countered with a right hand. Now, I'm going to say it now. The right hand that Crawford hit Kell Brook with, it didn't look that powerful. It was a short shot, but it didn't look to have necessarily a concussive effect on it. But Kell Brook felt that his legs did a dance. He went into the ropes. Crawford unleashed the combination on him. Then the referee, Tony Weeks, he actually stepped in and gave Kell Brook a standing count, because as far as he was concerned, the ropes kept Kell Brook from going down. So he gave Kell Brook the standing count. Kell Brook didn't look fully cognizant. I think that's fair to say. Even though the shot didn't look that bad, he didn't look like he was all there. Terence Crawford doesn't need a second invitation. He is a very good finisher. Went in there, took Kell Brook out. Referee jumped in and stopped it. That was all she wrote. Terence Crawford moves on. Kell Brook, I think now at this stage he really needs to call it quits. I think the punch resistance is gone. I think that looks apparent to me, that the punch resistance is gone. Kell Brook's chin was never granite, but the shot that I saw him get hit with by Crawford, I watched him a couple of times, it didn't look that innocuous, you know. And Crawford at welterweight is a fair puncher. I think that's for, he's not feather fisted. I mean, he's stopped every person he's fought at welterweight out. But compared to the Crawford at like lightweight and 140, he's not as big a puncher as a welterweight as he was there. Although I think he has grown into the weight very well. So Kell Brook, you got to say that the punch distance is looking to go. The reflex are looking to be kind of dipping a bit. At the end of the day, people were saying that, this is the first time they've noticed Kell Brook go from a fight, like when he fought Mark DeLuca, straight into a training camp and not balloon up in weight. Now, he said in the past he'd do it, and he never did. This is the first time they've seen it. So they were saying that he should make the weight okay, he should be shut. At the end of the day, my way of looking at it is, right, you spend a career of blowing up in between fights, doing God only knows what over there in Tenerife and Fuerteventura. From what I've heard, a lot of things. You spend the whole career doing that. You've been fluctuating in between fights. You've took a bit of a beating. You took a few beatings in your career against Spence and Triple G. Also, the Carson Jones fight the first fight wasn't great in terms of the punishment Kell Brook took. So you took punishment. You've not lived the life at all throughout your career. You've blown up in between fights. We've heard, I think, did I remember the story of him on the plane a couple of years ago getting kicked off the plane? We've heard stories about this, that and the other. You can't just assume near the end of your career that you go from a fight to a fight and you stay in shape and then it's going to be all, sunshine and daisies. It doesn't work like that. So as far as I was concerned, this was always going to happen. I just thought it was going to happen a lot later in the fight. I was picking Crawford in the 10th round. So Crawford moves on. Kell Brook, as I said, I like Kell Brook. I always like watching him fight, but I think now it really is time to call it a day. I hope he got well paid for this fight. I know he got well paid for a couple of his other fights. I think that Kell Brook needs to call it a day. I know it's going to sound cynical. The only thing I worry about, right, is if Kell Brook does call it a day. You've seen how he is in between fights, right? What happens when there's no fight? I know that might sound kind of cynical, like saying, I'm sure he's learned, but you've heard so many stories about Kell Brook, getting up to all kinds of what, and you think, right, he could be fighting in 3-6 months, so maybe he's going to calm it down. What happens when there's no fight? What happens when it's just Kell Brook? Now, to be fair, he has said at the start of this year that he's turned things around. I hope that's true, and we don't hear stories about Kell Brook getting into all kinds of what. I hope that's true. For his own sake, he's got a family. And in terms of his boxing career, nothing to be ashamed of. He won a world title. He done a much better job on Sean Porter than Errol Spence did. And he's an underachiever, Kell Brook. That is fair to say. I think that is if anyone says to me Kell Brook's an underachiever, I say 100% he is. Massive waste. Should have done so much more. Should have done way more than what he done. But that being said, it is what it is. You have to live the life. If you spend 10 years as a pro, or no, if you spend, say, 7 years at the highest level, if you can keep yourself in shape for those 7 years, then you can do whatever the hell you want after that. But when you're trying to match the two, it ain't gonna work. Anyway, people, I'm going to leave it here. Alright, bit of a long... I only planned on this video being 4 or 5 minutes. I'm sure it's gone way longer than that. Hope you all enjoyed it. Smash the like button again, people, if you haven't already. We're going to talk about this later in the live stream. Obviously, it's Sunday, so Sunday is live stream day. So we're going to talk about all this later on this evening in a live stream, maybe about 8 o'clock or so. Hope you all enjoyed it, people. As always, I'll talk to you. Hashtag King of Rip Jeans, G-Man's Rocks, all that good stuff. I'll talk to you all. Peace.